Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is LB the Realist with Surrealistic Studios, where the real gets real, and it gets most surreal. So, I got a clip I want to play you guys. It's about 4 minutes long here, 12 seconds. It's entitled "False Rape Accusation Furthers Institutionalized Racism." Now, this video was posted to YouTube, um, I believe 8 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just double check that right now. Hold on. Let me see. 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 All right, it's gonna pause, but just bear with me. Okay, well, I guess I'm back on it here. All right, so I'm gonna play this video here. I wasn't able to find out when it was exactly, but I believe it was 8 years ago. Here we go.
Parents and police that she'd been kidnapped and raped. Last week, a 15-year-old Encinitas girl told her parents and police that she'd been kidnapped and raped by 3 Latino men. Before she admitted that the entire story was fabricated, the police had conducted an intense manhunt in a community already on high alert after the murders of teenagers Chelsea King and Amber Dubois. It turned out the minor had sex with a 20-year-old man she met online. He is now in jail. But the story raises questions of how false accusations like this impact communities of color already vulnerable to institutionalized racism. Joining me now to discuss this is Sarah Clark Kaplan. She's a scholar of ethnic and critical gender studies at UCSD. Sarah, thanks for being with us. What did you think when you heard about the kidnapping and rape in Encinitas?
Well, of course, I think as a scholar of gender studies and as a feminist, or even just as a member of the community, I was, as everyone was, I think, concerned to hear that there was this kind of violent sexualized assault happening in San Diego. But I have to confess that when I also heard that it was these 3 Latino men that she had described, I did have concerns as a scholar of ethnic studies about the impact that this kind of panic could have in a city that's already racially charged.
What's the history of this kind of accusation?
Well, these kinds of accusations go way back. We can think about something like, say, the Scottsboro case of 1931, where 2 white women accused 9 young men of raping them on a train, and they were on trial for years, despite the fact that it was made up. We can go back to the Central Park jogger case in 1989, where, because she had no memory of the traumatic incident, the police basically bullied 4 young black men into confessing, and then found out later that, in fact, they hadn't committed the crime at all.
So how have these types of false accusations impacted and even furthered institutionalized racism?
I think that one of the things that we do see happening is that particular kinds of constructions of raced and gendered masculinity, the idea of the black or brown man as sexually criminal or deviant, does mean that it becomes easier, say, for police who have no intention of enacting racism and who seriously take all charges of sexual assault. It allows them to perhaps take more seriously cases that lack evidence because it sounds possible. It sounds more probable because for all of us, the idea that black and brown men are sexual predators has been naturalized to a certain extent. I mean, think about Susan Smith, who simply said, "Oh, some black man killed my children," and people believed her.
Well, in terms of the larger community, though, how does this affect the larger San Diego community? Because we're still primarily a Caucasian white community.
I think San Diego as a community is primarily a melting pot, a kind of place of cultural diversity and cultural contact. And at a time when so close to the border, racial hostilities or racial tensions are already heightened, particularly with everything that's happening in Arizona, it makes people I think it makes communities of color understandably wary that the police are very ready to target them. I think it increases ideas that Mexicano men are sexually criminal or sexually deviant. I mean, if you look at the coverage now, what you see is not that this girl made up this accusation about 3 Latino men to cover a consensual, albeit illegal, sex act, but that a Latino man is in jail for rape.
Okay, just very briefly, is there an underlying issue that people are missing here?
I think one of the things we need to know is that institutionalized racism is always gendered. It's not simply about race overall, but in fact, men of color face a particular kind of struggle around issues of sexual criminality.
Thank you very much, Sarah Clark Kaplan.
Now, that was very interesting. That was very interesting indeed. And I thought that that was important to highlight, because it's very much true. I mean, men of color, especially black men in this country, have a history of being falsely accused of rape, sexual assault, whatever you want to call it. We always have to fight off that label of being sexual deviants. And we saw it with Emmett Till. We saw it in the cases that this woman was discussing in this clip. We see it all the time. And it's just funny that there was so much movement, so much hatred towards Bill Cosby, somebody of high esteem, somebody of that status. And his struggle with that has actually gone back a few years. Not a few years, I mean many years actually. I mean, we're talking 10 plus years now. So I just thought that that was very important to highlight, because even 8 years ago, they were discussing how institutionalized racism plays into this whole, false rape, false sexual assault. As far as that goes, it's real, especially for men of color. Now, it's also real that women go through rape and sexual assault, and oftentimes the crime goes unreported, and oftentimes, if reported, people don't believe them. And I don't agree that we should just believe women when they say these things, but I do think that we should always listen to them with an open ear. Listen to the evidence that they provide. Listen to their testimonials. Is there any corroborating evidence, or is there anybody backing them up? What are the motives? I'm just looking into all aspects of this. I'm not trying to be disrespectful to women that accuse men of these acts, because it is a very serious issue that needs to be dealt with. But at the same time, I just want you guys to understand that there's real historical context behind accusing men of color. I'm not saying that men of color can't do these acts. I'm just saying when we have these cases come up, we have to be more critical, and we have to be sensitive to the historical context of what we're talking about. That's all I'm saying. If you understand that, then you can understand why I can't let this Bill Cosby thing go. It just is what it is. So for those of you that want me to get back to my regular programming, hey, I'm coming back soon. Don't even worry about it. I'm still dipping my toes in, but we're gonna get this right. So with all that being said, remember to love in your hearts, remember the peace. I'll come back to you guys on another video real soon. I'm out.